And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I am Michael DeLon. Today I'm talking with Matt Cretzman. Matt, thanks for being here for a few minutes, man.
My pleasure, Michael. It's a joy to be with you today. I can tell we're all going to have a lot of fun.
We are going to have a ton of fun. So, Matt is a well-rounded entrepreneur in many realms. He's got all kinds of businesses coming out of his ears. He helps business owners do a lot of things around marketing, around LinkedIn. He just published a new book. We're going to be talking about that. Talks about branding, which everybody knows is one of my hot buttons. So we're just going to let the conversation kind of flow, Matt, and see where it takes us.
Let's
So
go.
let's just jump into the deep end and tell me, man, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. How much time we got? Yeah, and man,
Love it.
it's I've never met anybody who's actually answered that question and said it was a straight line. Like
Ever.
life does not happen in a straight line. It's usually like spaghetti. It's
Yeah.
like all over the place. So. I'm not doing today what I thought I would be doing when I was young, but I'm grateful for all of the steps that led me to where I am because it brings so much purpose to my life, when I reflect back on, man, all the mountains and valleys and peaks and everything that I've been through.
Yeah.
So yeah, to understand where I came from. So I'm actually from Canada. You probably can't hear it in my accent because there is none. Worked really hard to get rid of that. I love my Canadian heritage, but man, I love Texas. I live here in
Yeah.
Dallas and it's great. But yeah, I was born in Canada, and ever since I was young, I had a travel bug. I had to travel. I loved it as a young kid. My family and I, we didn't travel very much, but I got bit with the travel bug when I was a teenager, and just started exploring. Mexico was my first international trip. Went to the Dominican Republic, and Mike, my I was exposed to the realities of how so many people live. The way we live here in America is not normal.
It's not.
It's not the way most of the world actually lives. And so my heart kind of broke, and I really wanted to give back, and I wanted to figure out how can I help people, right? How can I make a difference? How can I make somebody's life better? That was really what I wanted to do.
Uh,
So I went to, this might sound odd, but I actually went to seminary, and I was getting ready to work with church leaders and just kind of pour into people and help raise up leadership in these different communities. My heart was set on Latin America. I grew up speaking French, so Spanish was pretty easy for me to learn. And so yeah, jumped in, and 2010 I quit everything in Canada, and I just jumped in a van and I started raising funds for my nonprofit, and circled the country, been to 45 states. But then in 2012, there was a defining moment that happened in my life. And so my family and I had married at the time, and I had my youngest. She was 3 years old. Her name is Aslan. And then I had Maddie. At the time, she was 18 months, and we were driving from North Carolina to Ohio to go to a conference. And we hit black ice on a bridge, and the van lost traction and just slid off the road. And my firstborn actually passed away
oh
there at
man.
that accident. Yeah. And it was tough. I mean, imagine, like as a dad, she's the one that made me a dad. Like she was my
Right.
firstborn. And there's a lot of really hard, but very special things that happened because of that event.
Mm-hmm.
And one of which, well, two things in particular really stand out. One of them was, as I looked at Maddie, who was 18 months and, grew up, a year and a half, but she had her sister and she loved her sister. I'm like, how do I communicate to a young child, like, the reality of death? I'm like, how do I do
Yeah.
that? So it hit me. I'm like, you know what? You do that through a book, which you will understand and appreciate, right? The
Yeah.
ability to books can tell stories, take people places, and help them process and understand things in a way that only they can. And
Right.
so I wrote a children's book and self-published it, threw it up on Kickstarter, raised a bunch of money, and printed a few thousand copies, and that brought so much healing. The second thing that I did was I ended up going to India, and through a friend of mine who had been helping a bunch of people out there for 30 years. And man, when I got to India, it changed my life, like radically changed my life.
Really.
35 million orphans in India. And living in the most, horrendous, gut-wrenching situations. And so I saw, I felt, and I heard stories that just deeply impacted me. And I thought, you know what? This is it. Like I'm helping people in Latin America, but man, I really want to help these kids in India. And so, to make a very long story short, 8 months later, what ended up happening was from that first trip, I developed a friendship over that time period with a guy named Danny. And Danny was an Indian guy. He and his wife actually took out a loan from the government to build an orphanage. And I went and saw it that first trip. And then 8 months later, he called me and he's like, "Hey, Matt, I really enjoyed getting to know you. I just wanted to know, can we name this orphanage after your daughter?" And I was like, "Oh man, this is, you know,
Yeah.
it was so special." And it was bucket list item someday. If I could
Oh
start
yeah.
an orphanage, like how cool would that be? And I was actually able to do it, pretty young. So I was like 25, 26 when I founded that. And here we are, 2024, that was 2012. So 12 years later, and we've helped hundreds of kids in India, just like rewriting their stories, which is super cool. So
Well
to speed it
done.
along, 2016, I moved here to Dallas from the Dominican Republic. I lived there for 3 years and went through a bit of a life transition, found myself a full-time single dad. And I
Mm-hmm.
had my 5 and 2-year-old. Lucy came later, 2013. And so I had my two girls. I'm like, well, I can't really travel anymore because I got to take care of my kids. And so I raised them myself. And 3 years just kind of wandered, waiting for the next season. Like, what's next? And for some people that are listening to your podcast, books can be an incredibly powerful tool to help you launch into that thing. Like, what is that big thing that you want to chase, you want to build, you want to tell that story, tell it through a book.
Yeah.
And so 2019, I fell into LinkedIn because I got hired at another marketing agency. And Brad was the owner. We became best friends that year. And 2019 was the year that changed my life
Okay.
because I finally developed a new set of skills that I could take to the marketplace, and I could make money with those skills. I could help people with those skills. And it's essentially this. I love LinkedIn, all things LinkedIn. LinkedIn to me it's so much more than a social media platform. It's a doorway to new relationships, opportunities that are driven by conversations with
Amen.
people that you can only find on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I could tell you many stories about LinkedIn, but just wrote the book, kind of telling as many of those stories as possible. 190 pages, lots of cool stuff, and yeah, lead a team of about eight full-time marketers here at Stormbreaker, and I'm grateful, man, very very grateful.
Man, thank you for that. We could end the podcast now and it would be gold because of all the thank you for that story. What a powerful story. Highs, lows, orphanage, all that. I'm going to the Dominican Republic in about 3 weeks on a mission trip. Again, I went last year, I'm going again this year. And they've got a school there and clean water and prison ministry. And just, you're right, going to other
Yeah.
countries, getting out of this thing that we call the United States changes your whole perspective,
Yes.
and it brings you back hopefully with a grateful heart, which I hear that you have, right?
Yes.
And when you wake up every day thankful and grateful for what we've been given and where we live, it changes how we go about serving. And I love how you said LinkedIn is about conversations. And I'm so glad to hear that because I'm so tired of everybody graduating from the course and say, well, I can help you get $17. It's like, oh, shut up.
Yeah.
It's about relationships. So
Yes.
unpack for us, because I mean, I've got a
Yeah.
lot of business owners listening to this who do use LinkedIn and a bunch
Yeah.
of other things. But talk a little bit about how you've developed these relationships, conversations. What have you found that actually works on LinkedIn? And we'll talk about some
Yeah.
other things too. But that's a good hot
Oh
button right there.
man. I love it. And I love that you're going to the Dominican, man. I'll be praying for you on your
Thank
trip, and I
you.
hope it's a wonderful time. It's a special place. I love those people.
Yes.
So yeah, LinkedIn's interesting. I'll tell you one other story. So I actually in a roundabout way, I found my wife through LinkedIn. So I remarried a couple of years ago. And this will kind of unpack like my philosophy for LinkedIn. Okay.
Okay.
There's two ways to target people or list build, as we might say, on LinkedIn. That's demographic or psychographic. Okay.
Okay.
Demographic is what's the title, what's the industry, the company size, the geographic location. That's basics like sales target traits.
Right.
Okay. The other type, psychographic, is I really love doing psychographic targeting because it's more the intangibles. How do they think? How do they feel? How do they view the world? What do they believe? What do they care about? What problem are they looking to solve? What mission are they living out? Those are all the psychographic traits that maybe aren't as as readily identifiable if I were to go into like LinkedIn and list build or into like Apollo or something like that. But they're there if you know how to look for them. So I'll tell you the story of how I came to find my wife. So 2019, I started working with a sports team here in Dallas, helping their sales team make the most of LinkedIn. Now, this is, if there's ever any sports leaders that are listening to this podcast, listen to me. LinkedIn is a gold mine because sports teams, and really any business, you should be on LinkedIn. Sports teams in particular, they needed to get partnership deals and sponsorship deals, premium sales, logos on jerseys. How do they find those people? Well, all of those decision makers are sitting on LinkedIn. They just didn't know how to, they didn't know how to use it the right way. How do we message and connect, and like I don't know how to do that stuff. So I started working with the sports team. Lauren reached out to me. I then, started chatting with her. We met up for coffee. She tried to sell me as one of those guys, partnership deal. And I flipped the script and I was like, "How did you find me?" And she's like, "Manual, just searching this, and bumped into you." And I'm like, "You realize there's like a much more streamlined way to actually like bring efficiency to what you're doing. You're spending hours a day when it can be, for the most part, like streamlined." And so flipped the script, got a meeting with the GM, met with him. We struck a deal. They've been my clients for 5 years. But Lauren actually now, she moved on to a different workplace, but we worked together for a couple of years. And then a couple of years later in 2022, as I'm single and eligible, okay, looking for love in all the right places, scrolling through scrolling through dating profiles on Hinge, and there's Lauren. I was like, what the heck? Lauren is with this person. This person is Nadia. I don't know Nadia, but I do know Lauren. And so the outreach, I borrowed trust from Lauren to start a conversation with Nadia, which that's one of the things that you should think about if you're going to be active on LinkedIn is, and this is marketing. People do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Man.
How do you accelerate the trust cycle? Well, trust is very simply the same action over a time period equals trust. The more predictable you are, the greater level of trust that you will have with people that are following you or looking at you. So the only way you shortcut that, and that's why there's influencer marketing, is I borrow trust from somebody else and I use that as a way to open the door. And so my outreach was, "Hey, really cool. How do you know Lauren? Love your profile." Right. And then she saw the message and boom, we started chatting, went on a first date. The rest of the story, we ended up married very quickly. So that way of like viewing LinkedIn, how do I find the right people? How do I message them? For psychographic, I'll give you an example. You might go to LinkedIn and let's just say you wanted to find, faith business leaders, people that, are faith leaders as well. Like I would go to, you can do this on Sales Nav or you can do it on basic LinkedIn, go to where they went to school. And if they went to like Liberty University, Baylor, SMU, TCU, then like, oh, okay, well, there's a good chance that they are, right? Or what organizations they're following and whatnot. So that commonality breeds trust and accelerates the trust cycle and helps you get a meeting.
Yeah, that's so good. As you were describing the demographics and the psychographics, years ago, I followed, and I still follow Roy Williams, who's a marketing dude, but he talked about, I'm terming this tribal traits, because we are all parts of different tribes at some level, or the old analogy, birds of a feather flock together, right?
Bingo.
And that's psychographic targeting. No matter whether I live in Dallas or Lexington or Little Rock, we're all, we all follow Christ, or we all love this, or we whatever. That's really where the common ground happens. Because if you and I meet at your daughter's birthday party, what are we going to do? We're going to do that dance, and we're going to try to find common ground. We're going to find psychographic differences, or commonalities to build common ground and trust over that. And you're just doing it on LinkedIn, which is really wicked cool. So
that's it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's amazing. Like, man, I've used the same principles. I was just talking to a gal this morning, and she, she signed up as a client. She's going to Singapore, and F1 is happening next week in Singapore. And I was like, okay, who do you want to meet? Investors. Okay, interesting. So let's put together some, filtering criteria, and then use that as the outreach and say, hey, are you going to the F1 race? I'm flying. I'm coming into town. Would love to take you out for coffee. Right? Like, it works.
Exactly.
It's there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You speak of my language, and nobody sees that as a sales call or an outreach, right? Because it's more personal than that.
It's more personal than that. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's it. Like, my view on sales, and my second book that I'm going to write is going to be about pipeline. And so
Mm,
you hear pipeline, you may think of a sales pipeline, not the plumbing pipeline, but like the sales pipeline. And people think about that. They think of sales targets. I've got to fill my pipeline with people that'll buy from me.
right.
But our view of pipeline is, I say this, your pipeline is your lifeline.
Hmm.
And the story that I told about losing my daughter and everything else, like all the relationships that were in my pipeline,
Yeah.
they actually served a different purpose than I had originally intended. I didn't know that all that stuff would happen. But when you fill your address book and your calendar and your pipeline with all these contacts and you're focused on the relationship,
Yes.
inevitably something will happen, good or bad.
Right.
Life has seasons. We don't know. But if you fill the right people in there, then it's amazing how much that can turn into incredible opportunities, you
Well,
know?
it really does, because every person in that pipeline knows 20 or 30 or 50 people who might be a good fit for you at some time. And
Yes.
it's just it's so right on in what you're
Yes.
doing. So how do you, I mean, we could talk for hours. I already know that, right? Let's
Yeah.
talk about, how
Yeah.
do you work with business owners
Yep.
of any variety? What's a good client for you? What are they struggling with? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. There's a couple that I really love working with. First of all, if you have a sales team and you're selling something B2B, you have a B2B solution, B2B business, and you have a, small, large, probably between like I'd say 1 to 10, size sales team. I love to talk to those companies because the buyer, the B2B buyer has changed. Their behavior has changed so much. They don't want to be sold. They don't want to get a meeting. They don't want a demo. They don't want a gift card. They don't want a cop. They don't want it. They want to be educated. That's
Yeah.
it. Educate me, right? Talk to me in a way that I know you understand my problem and my challenges, and you have a solution that doesn't require me to actually marry you yet,
Right.
So
Yep.
there's so that's what's changed. So what's happening is like sales teams are now there's this big debate happening on LinkedIn. Should sales teams be should they actually build a personal brand and create content? If they're doing that on LinkedIn, man, like now you can actually like you're educating the buyer and you're getting sales opportunities for the company. So there's some tools now that have come out to help sales teams create content and win. This is the amazing time that we live in. So I love working with them. And then anybody who's like a founder, entrepreneur, expert, right, coach, consultant,
Yeah.
I love working with that. And the ones that are especially meaningful, and probably for you too, Michael, the ones like yesterday I was talking to Darren, and Darren has spent 25, 30 years building products and traveling to China and overseas countries to talk to, tool and die, manufacturing, logistics, like all of that stuff to build products and get distribution and sell them here. He's got wealth of knowledge. He knows all this stuff. And he said yesterday, he's like, as I was telling him about building a personal brand and sharing his knowledge, he's like, "Do you really think people would listen to me?" And I'm like, "Michael, Darren,
Yeah.
man, there's so many people that would listen to you. You have a wealth of knowledge. You're giving them the shortcut to
Yeah.
success, right?" And so I love working with people like that who, maybe are timid, unsure, but they're seasoned, they're experienced, and man, they've got stories and knowledge to share. Oh, there's so much that we can do to help position them
Yeah.
and build assets to help them monetize their knowledge and share it with people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you hit another one of my hot buttons, is that personal brand is how you put it there. One of the books that changed my life years ago was Positioning by Trouton Reese, and just thinking
Yeah.
about how the mind works. And yes, people will listen and follow you, and you have a story to tell, but you're just not telling it.
Yeah.
And people like you can bring that story to bear. And
Yes.
I tell my clients a lot, it's not like I'm shining the spotlight on you saying, "Oh, look at me. I'm the," no, that's not what it's about at all. It's about your
Correct.
client, but allowing them to merge with you and to
Yeah.
join you on this journey to go, "Wow, you're somebody I can trust. You're somebody I like. Let's hang around together, be part of my tribe, and let's see how I can serve you." Is that kind of a
Yes.
fair representation?
Bingo. Bingo. You nailed it. Yeah. And I love the tribes thing too. That you hit one of my hot buttons, man. Like, and there's no zero sum mentality, right? Like there are so many people in this world. Like, we could do the exact same thing and we would still attract very different people,
100%.
that's it. So
Yeah.
how easy are you making it for people to say, yeah, he's my guy, or it doesn't really resonate with me, but he really does.
Absolutely.
Are you drawing a line so people know which side they stand on? And that's okay. Like, have an opinion, be you, like, you'll attract the right people.
Yeah, before something, right? And
Yes.
and and in marketing, Dan
Yeah.
Kennedy told me this decades ago, right? Your marketing should attract and repel at the same
Right.
time, and that's
Yeah.
great.
Yes.
And
Yes.
business owners are scared to do that, I think.
Yeah.
And I think so many times they get sucked into, or they buy into the next thing, because there are so many course creators out there and so many things that the
Yeah.
business owner doesn't understand what to do, because they're not marketers, and so they just listen to the next loudest voice,
Yeah.
versus hanging out with somebody like Matt and his team, who's been there, who have a process in place that's worked for them,
Hmm.
worked for many others, to go, what are you trying to make happen, and let us humanize
Yeah.
your outreach, and it'll work a lot better.
Yeah. Exactly. That's it. Yeah. Yeah. Don't be afraid of, yeah, expressing your opinions and sharing your viewpoints, and do it respectfully, but be you. And you'll be amazed at what'll happen. Like, you'll
It,
change people's lives. You inevitably
well,
will.
you really will, because what will happen? Go back to the tribe, is you do attract your tribe. One of my clients, Phil Paluchis, talks about your vibe attracts your tribe.
Correct.
And when he first said that, I'm like, what? I didn't really get it. And then the more he unpacked it, I'm like, oh, I get what you're saying. If my son's a drummer, right? So he
Yeah.
naturally goes with drummers.
Yeah.
And I got a friend at church who's a bass guitarist, and that's why he taught, and that's who he gathered. Oh, I
Yeah.
get it. And in
Yeah.
business, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And at the end of a lot of podcasts that I do, people say, "All right, Michael, what's your parting advice for everybody?" And Matt, it's always the same thing. It's like, be yourself,
Yeah.
show up genuine, and
Exactly.
you will be shocked and amazed at how many
Yes.
people actually like you.
Yeah. 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 You will be,
Um,
yeah. Some people more shocked than others.
that's, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit. You got your book. Mention that a bit, and mention
Yeah.
this assessment that you mentioned to me. How can those help? And then
Yeah.
let's tell people where to find you.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Great point. Thank you. Yeah. So the LinkedIn Advantage book, actually, I co-wrote it. And another thing that you probably teach your clients and try to get as many people to do, strategic book writing. So
Mhm.
I wrote a strategic book with my co-author, Tony Geary, who's written 100 books, and his clients will soon be mine. Hence the strategic book, and they
Yeah,
all need help on LinkedIn. And I've taught Tony a lot, and Tony's taught me a ton.
yeah,
Him being, like the coach to the CEO of Walmart, Sam's Club, Chrysler, American Airlines, and stuff like that. So we co-wrote the book, The LinkedIn Advantage, all kinds of goodies in there, and just trying to bring clarity around how to use LinkedIn. And so to get people started, what I ended up doing was developing the assessment from the book, which is called what you get after you take the assessment is your LinkedIn Power Score. So if you go to linkedinpowerscore.com, you can go on there. It's free. Just go on, scroll to the bottom, a few questions, boom, 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 put your email, and we'll shoot over the score. And the score will tell you which animal you are, 4 different animals: the lion, the eagle, the beaver, and I think it's the caterpillar.
I
I
love it.
just don't want to be the caterpillar, man.
That's right.
So yeah, you'll do that, and that'll help you make sense of, like, where am I winning, where am I losing, like, how can I improve a little bit. So that's it. Launch will come next month in October, and super excited to help people, win on LinkedIn, use it to their advantage, and who knows, they might actually even find love on LinkedIn like I did. You
That's
never
right.
know.
I love it. A whole new theme. The love boat theme just hit my head. The love boat, the
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
there
Um,
you go.
sorry, we won't go there.
Nah.
All right, I'm gonna grab those domains. We're gonna have those in the show notes, so you can reach out to Matt. You can get a copy of his book. You can take this LinkedIn Power Score um, assessment,
Mhm.
because it's really, really important. Everybody says, "Well, I want to do this." Great, but where are you right now? And
Yeah,
and how can Matt in what he's done really help you? And then follow him and watch out for his launch and see how he can help you
yeah,
be more human, be more real, make better connections, get conversations, and find more business really on LinkedIn. But
yeah,
wrapping all this up, doing all of it with a heart of gratitude
yeah,
for what you have been given. Because if
yeah,
you're listening to this podcast, you've been given a ton.
yeah,
And so be thankful there.
yeah. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, and
That,
it. This is the greatest time to be on LinkedIn. You know, they just rolled out like TikTok Reels on LinkedIn. It is hungry for video. Lots of
Yeah.
ways to win. It can change your life if you do it right, like it's changed mine. And I'm grateful, Michael, for just, you know, you giving me a few minutes to share this with your audience.
Yeah, brother, it has been my joy. Thanks for being who you are. Thanks for showing up genuine and for helping business owners the way that you do, Matt.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate it.